How many of us knew the song? How many of you youngsters didn't? Did you not know that song? Okay. Yeah, great song, isn't it? Great song for this time. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. And as always, I'm always so impressed with our band because they just came together this morning to rehearse that. And it's amazing. It's amazing to me. Wow. Okay, so we are continuing to talk about love today. What we are doing is for each month of this year, we are going to be integrating one of the 12 powers as written by Charles Fillmore, our co-founder. And I'm not always going to be able to talk about it for the whole month. I'm glad that I have gotten to talk about love for most of this month because it is the foundation out of which everything else springs forth in our life. And so, the first week we talked about loving ourselves and how important it is to recognize, when you think about that we have come forth from God. And I love the saying that says, I am not all that God is, but all that I am is God. And from that perspective, how could we do anything less than purely love this being? And yet, it's not quite so easy, is it? But it's so important because when we stop and take a moment and just tap in to the love that is everywhere present, we can recognize that we are purely and perfectly loved in this moment. We always have been, we are now, and we always will be, no matter what. And do you know why? Because love never withholds itself. Ever, ever, ever. And so having that self-love helps us to be able to love others in a purer way. And then we talked about love through service. And again, love is always giving. And so we can, when we're really centered and rooted in that love, we can only be in that place of how may I serve? How may I serve? How may I serve? And then last week we talked about love through forgiveness. And I had a couple conversations with people who shared with me that when I said in the greater realm of life and the greater reality, there is nothing to forgive. And they said, whoa, I had to really sit with that one for a couple days. And I'm not saying that that's easy. And I'm not saying that's where we're always going to get. But it's where we can get. And that's why, for me, this year is about really calling us to that higher place. And even in just that calling us, if we raise up this much, then it makes a difference in everything around us. But when we can get to that place where we recognize that, and the reason that there is nothing to forgive is because all things work together for good. And the scripture says, for those who love God. And what that means to me is for those of us who are rooted and who are awake and aware, then we can see that all things really do work together. I know in my own life when I look back and some of the things that happened and I thought at the moment it was the worst thing and that this person was showing up so horrible and it was their fault, that with time I recognized, wow, this was totally for me. It was totally for me. And it always is for us, even when it doesn't feel like it. So today we're going to talk about love through kindness and compassion. Ellen DeGeneres recently got the Humanitarian Award for the People's Choice. And after the fact, she said, isn't it sad that we have to give an award for people being kind? Yeah. And that we have random acts of kindness day or random acts of kindness week. As though it's not who we are. And so I'm going to share with you some scripture about kindness. Galatians says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Colossians, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with tender-hearted mercy, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Ephesians says, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And we talked about that last week. And then this is from the Bible called The Voice. It's a relatively relatively new Bible written in contemporary terms, but I love this. It says, love others well and don't hide behind a mask. Love authentically. Despise evil. Pursue what is good as if your life depends on it. Live in true devotion to one another, loving each other as sisters and brothers. Be first to honor others by putting them first. Do not slack in your faithfulness and hard work. Let your spirit be on fire. I just want to give that to you, on fire. Bubbling up and boiling over as you serve the Lord. And do not forget to rejoice, for hope is always just around the corner. Hold up through hard times that are coming and devote yourselves to prayer. Share what you have with the saints so they lack nothing. Take every opportunity to open your life and home to others. And of course, from Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And let's say this last line together. Love never fails. Love never fails. Love never fails. And this is really something for us to take into that deep realization in our beingness, because there are times that we may think, we're doing our work, and I'm going to show up as love in this situation, but we're not seeing the effect of that. We get discouraged. Anybody ever gotten discouraged and like, oh, it's not working? And it's like, stay, because love never fails. And I promise you that. And it doesn't have to show up the way you think it has to show up. Because many times we can't even see the effect of that love. But it's happening inside other people. And that is a promise. Love always, always, always wins. Paul said that love is the fulfilling of the law. And Jesus said, I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. And so the fulfillment of the law is love. And Jesus expressed that so beautifully. So I'm going to talk for a couple minutes about compassion. Now, according to Webster, essentially, compassion is a feeling, I think, rather of sympathy, of empathy, and with a desire to help alleviate the suffering of another person. And Charles Fillmore from the Revealing Word says that compassion is a characteristic of love and mercy prompted by an understanding heart, a compassionate mind, and hear this, sees the error, but does not condemn. A compassionate mind and heart can see it, but we're not going to condemn it. That's hard in our humanness, isn't it? Oh man, that's a big one for us. So we know that throughout Scripture, it says that Jesus was moved with compassion. He was often moved with compassion. So I'm going to share with you a couple of things about that. At Jericho, he had compassion on two blind men who were sitting there, and he went over and he touched their eyes, and their sight came back. He was moved with compassion and healed the sick with a great multitude of people near the Sea of Galilee. There's one in Luke that says when Jesus came to the city of Nain, there was a coffin that was on a stand, and inside the coffin was a son, and the mother was standing there. And he was moved with compassion, and he went over and touching the stand, he brought the son back to life. When he was seeing the hunger of the multitude, he said, I have compassion on the multitude because they continue with me now 3 days, and they have nothing to eat, and I will not send them away fasting lest they faint in their way. And he had compassion all the time. He had compassion on the lepers, but he was always moved to action with compassion. And that's the thing about compassion, is that it is a call to action. It is love in action. And that's that whole part of it that is, we can empathize, but we really have a desire to help. We really have a desire to help alleviate the suffering. Now, I'm going to say here before we go on that two of the powers, all of the 12 powers work together. Two of the powers that must be together are love and wisdom. And we're going to start talking about wisdom next week. Love and discernment. Love without wisdom and discernment can get you into some real trouble. Yes? Oh, yeah. Wisdom without love can be very cold. It can be very sterile. And so as I'm talking about this today, keep in mind that we're talking about love and discernment, and it's that spiritual discernment with this power of love. Okay, So what is kindness? Let me just share with you some of the words that are kindness. Consideration, cordiality, courtesy, decency, gentleness, good intention, goodwill, goodness, graciousness, heart, helpfulness, hospitality, humanity, patience, sweetness, humanitarianism, selflessness, unselfish concern, tenderness, warmth, regard, friendliness, care, thoughtfulness, and generosity. How do those words make you feel? Pretty good. The thing about all of these things is that's who we are. That's already who we are. How many of us, when we have shown a kindness or we have helped to alleviate the suffering of another, have felt really good in the doing of that? Right. You know why? Because that's who you are. You are love. And love never, ever, ever withholds. And so as you are giving that through kindness and compassion, really through anything but kindness and compassion today, it feels good because that's who I am. And this is how I am able to express this love in this particular situation. Okay, so how many of us have heard the thing called the golden rule? And what is the golden rule? You got like a C on that one, you guys. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna start this from the perspective of recognizing things that we may do and how that comes back to us. So we're going to take that, and I'm going to say, you shall, then as you want to be. So you shall belittle as you want to be belittled. You shall criticize as you want to be criticized. You shall withhold love as you want others to withhold love from you. You shall condemn as you want to be condemned. You shall make fun of as you want to be made fun of. You shall speak about as you want to be spoken about. You know, you may yell and scream as you want to be yelled and screamed at. And I think so many times, and I've talked about this before, that we fight for our limitations. And so oftentimes, you know, I'll come across somebody that just says, you know, I have a problem with my temper. It's just who I am. And it's no, that is not who you are. That is an effect of something in your life, but that is not who you are. And if you are that person that says that and you blow up at people, I know that you don't want people to blow up at you. And the way that that can be healed is what we've been talking about forever, and that is taking that journey within and allowing God, allowing love to heal that. So let's shift this around. You shall respect others as you want to be respected. You shall see others as you want others to see you. You shall speak of others as you would like them to speak of others. You shall support others as you want to be supported. You shall understand others as you wish to be understood. You shall be present for others as you would like others to be present for you. You shall forgive others as you would like to be forgiven. And it goes on and on and on and on. And I think that this is just a call for us to take a look and really think about, what is it that I'm putting out there? Because I have to own that. I have to take responsibility for it. Please hear me. I'm not saying that we're never not going to be angry or sad, that we're, you know, there are going to be times when we're going to, you know, maybe yell or whatever. There's a big difference in that and living that, right? And even in those times, because I know for myself, even in those times that I know that I have way missed the mark, which of course in unity, missing the mark is what sin is. It's just error thinking. But I always stop and think, okay, don't beat yourself up, okay? I promise not to beat myself up, yes. Don't beat yourself up. That does no good. But just sit with it and think about, okay, what triggered that? How could I be different in that? Again, can I make an amend for something like that? And the more you do this, the more it just becomes natural. The more that you're going to catch yourself before it even comes out or before you even take the action. But what do you have to do? You have to practice. There's an anonymous quote that says, whenever someone does something nice for someone else, the entire world becomes a better place for all of us. Okay, so I'm going to call us high on this. So last night, we were sitting, and I was working on my talk, and I'm going to use the example because we see this all the time of somebody on the side of the road with a sign in their hand. And we've talked about this before. And have we all heard stories like, that's how they make their money. These people make $80,000, $100,000 a year. I saw something on Facebook of a son that posted that his dad had actually offered work to two men, and they refused the work. So he made a sign standing next to them saying, we offered work and they refused it. And I understand that from our human perspective. However, in the greater realm of everything that is, love never withholds. Love never looks at any of us and says, you don't deserve love. You haven't worked hard enough. You don't deserve love because you've done something. The only time that we can ever feel separate from the presence of love is when we have created those blocks in ourselves. That's the only time. But we're never even separate then. Because the moment that we open up and we go within, love is right there, loving us purely and unconditionally, always giving of itself with no conditions. That's a high call, isn't it? How do we show up as this love in our world? And so I got to this place and I started thinking about, okay, well, how does this work with codependence and enabling? Anybody ever lived the life of codependent enabler? Yes, okay. I know that life too. So I just put my computer down and I turned to Paul and I was like, help me with this because I'm really having a hard time in getting this together. And so, thank you, because talking through it really helped clarify so much for both of us. Okay, so here's one thing. And this is where love and wisdom come in, love and discernment. How do we know when we are are codependent or enabling? Again, check in with your body. Your body is always going to tell you what's going on. And in those moments is when we have to wake up, right? This is like the big call. We got to wake up and recognize. Because if we are enabling somebody to continue in a behavior that is dangerous to them or whatever, we are enabling. And so I just encourage you to use the power of your love and discernment in those situations. Okay, so we go to the guy on the corner and we look and boom, the story picks up right there and we remember what people said about it, or we make up our own story. I'm not even going to ask how many of us make up our own stories, because we all make up our own stories about everything, right? And here's what I want to tell you. Whatever story you've heard, whatever story you are making up, it's irrelevant. And you, in that moment, we are judging unrighteously. Right use judgment is as if we know everything about this person. Have you ever known somebody for a while, sat down, had a talk, and they tell you about this particular time in their life that you had no idea about? You're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea you went through that, or that was your experience. And you can see this person in a bigger way because we never have all the facts. We never do. And so we want to say, well, that person, I'm going to use the person on the corner again, they need to get a job. They could be out there doing this or that. Well, you know what? They're not. And what if we missed an opportunity to do good? Isn't it worth the risk? It's not even a risk. Because when we give, guess what? Love gives for the sake of loving, and it is not concerned with who it loves, nor is it concerned with a return of love. And you know why? Because in the moment that we are in that place, in that moment that we are giving, we are receiving. In the moment, we're receiving. And so we give because it's our nature to give. here's the other thing. Sometimes we just aren't in the position to give, right? Don't have money or don't have time or whatever, and that's okay. Following your intuitive hits, but I want you to practice your intuitive hits because sometimes it's our mind hits. So practice feeling that intuitive hit. But let's just say I'm not in a position to help somebody. What really matters is when I drive away or when I walk away, am I blessing them? Am I praying for them? Am I desiring good for them? Or am I in my story? Am I making them wrong? Am I separating myself? Anytime we're in separation, we're not in love. And I know this is not easy. And I know that there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of things that go on. And I'm going to always say, never let yourself stay in a situation that is harmful to you or anyone else. It's not about that. It's not about that I have to stay in this relationship because, God, I've got something to learn from it. And no matter how horrible it is, I have to stay in this place of love. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to love from afar. It's okay. But can we get to that place of loving and being in compassion and still showing up with kindness from afar? And we can. And that's the thing, is that we can. And so the high call today is, number one, wake up. And I loved in the scripture where it said, we have to do the work that is ours to do. We cannot come in here and go, oh, that felt so good. Yes, that feels good. And then go out and go back into life the way that we've always had it and expect that our life is going to be different. We're going to have to nurture and nourish these seeds. And we do that through prayer, meditation, journaling, reading, inspiring, uplifting things, listening to inspiring, uplifting things, listening to music that uplifts you, getting connected with other people who are like-minded. We're creating more groups so that we can have a more connected way to be with each other. And I'm not saying do all of those things, but I am saying that, and I've shared this before, it's like sometimes the days that I've just jumped up out of bed and I feel like, oh my gosh, I left my spirit in bed and my body's just going forward because I haven't connected, and I haven't made sure that today, how can I be the presence of love? Show me how I can be the presence of kindness and compassion today, because that's who and what I am. And so that's your homework for the week if you choose to take the assignment. But what I do know is that I so believe, you guys, that this is the right time and the right place for us to be here. This is the right time. That somehow, whether it was some decision we made before we came here, a holy assignment, I don't know. But I do believe that we cannot wait for anything outside of us to change. We can't wait for that. We have to be the change that we want to see in the world, but we have to start right here. And we have to start with our own heart and our own mind. We have to start with how we're showing up with our family, with our friends, with our community, with our spiritual community. And as we every day make that commitment that today I'm going to be in the awareness of showing up as love through kindness and compassion, then every person who receives that, guess what? Because that's who they are, and they remember. And you may not see that, and it's none of your business. All that your business is to be that expression of love. And as every one of us here that listens to this message in any way, as every one of us goes out into our world tomorrow, and we've all made that choice, wow, these amazing lights are shining. And wouldn't you agree that what we need in the world is light? We need connection and oneness. We need love and compassion. We need each other to remind each other that goodness will always prevail. But it has to be us. It's me and it's you, and it's all of us. So here we go, and here we grow. And it is my intention as your spiritual leader to continue to call you higher, to call all of us higher. And you know, we may not get here right now, but I promise you we can move here, and then we can move here, and then we can move here. And that light will be amazing. Namaste. Namaste.